It was supposed to be a new dawn for Afghan women. After years of being terrorized by the Taliban, they celebrated when the US overthrew the brutal regime.
We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail.
But after 18 years and tens of thousands of casualties, the war rages on. And the Taliban insurgency is stronger than ever.
The American people are weary of war without victory.
Desperate to withdraw its troops, the US is now negotiating a peace deal that could see the group return to power, along with its violent repression of women. To find out, I head to the northern province of Balkh.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mazar-e Sharif City, where the local time in here is 11:50 in the morning, and that's the temperature.
Mazar-e Sharif is a much smaller, much more conservative city than Kabul. There are definitely no bowling alleys here, and in public at least, many women still wear the burqa. I'm here to meet lawyer Najia Sadiq. But catching her isn't easy.
این قضیه بسته شده مثلا بودیم بخیر که متوقع باز کارهای بخش میانجی شما خودتا میکنین.
Right now, she's juggling 17 cases, defending women who have fled abusive families and forced marriages.
گپ بزنم گوش میکنی، گپ با فکر آرام گپ گوش میکنی، حال مقال نمیکنی. اگر اعتماد نباشه، اعتبار نباشه، محبت نباشه، اگر صرف به اساس مجبوری میشه، موضوع دیگه آینده نداره دیگه. اینو متوجه باشین.
Najia works for an NGO called Women for Afghan Women, which runs secret shelters.
Most of the cases we have are connected to domestic violence and family issues. Women want the relatives who have abused them to be punished.
Many here fear for their lives. For their protection, we've changed their names. Today, Najia is meeting with her client Fatima and her husband. Fatima says her husband is violent and that his uncle sexually harasses her, accusations he denies. Fatima has tried to leave him before.
یونس میگه که من یک متنفر جمع میکنم میرم در سر خانه خوبرش دراروی از یا باشه خوبرش بیناموسی میکنم زن چم میکنم
هم میکنی؟
من دیگه نمیرم مگر مردم میره زندم
Despite Najia's best efforts, this meeting is going nowhere.
لیک موضوع گپ نیست. نه کس دفتر زندانی نمیشه که عمل بعد میموت وقت داریم.
من یه لکنی نیستم. مرد سر زن حاکم است. زن سر مرد حاکم نیست.
خیر بینی که بگوش کو. ایو با گفتم این گپ نزن مثلا مثال مرد سر زن حاکم از زن سر حاکم.
نه مثالش میگم.
اینا موضوع جداست. ها اینا سعی کن. اینا تو از خود حقوق داری، واجبات داری.
Fatima's husband says he will never agree to a separation. She'll have to take him to court.
مشکل نیست اگه بخواسته با سلای ماماشم دعا میکنیم.
But it's her 3 children that Fatima is worried about. Under Afghan law, she'll lose custody if she leaves.
سعی کن دیگه. تو گریه نکن دیگه. گوش کن. گریه نکن دیگه. گریه راه حل نیست.
لازم تو جان میگه من اینم اسم جدا میشم نمیتونم میگه هر روز مردن یک روز بمرد. هر روز رسوا شدن یک روز
Najia knows her client is in a desperate situation. She also knows it could be much worse.
These women that we help now as defense attorneys, they would never have been able to raise their voice under the Taliban.
Najia says she'll never forget what life was like under their brutal regime. She was only 12 when Taliban fighters seized her city.
We weren't allowed to go outside without a male guardian. Girls aged from 12 or 13 had to wear the burqa. School and college was forbidden for girls. Under the Taliban, we were in complete darkness. We didn't know about women's rights, that they could separate from their husbands or punish the people who were violent towards them.
آیلین مادر جان آیلین
Najia now has a daughter of her own and another baby on the way. She says this is why she and so many women are worried that the Taliban may come back into power.
I was just a child, and it was so traumatic. I don't want my children to go through this. So I'm fighting for my kids, for their future, and for the future of this country.
Right now, one of her most pressing cases is Yasmin. She has run away from her father and a forced marriage. It's up to Najia now to protect her using the law.
He cocked his gun and put it against my head and said, "Why don't you want to marry him? You have to marry him." There were tiles on the kitchen floor. He grabbed me by the hair and banged my head against the floor again and again. Then he locked me in, and my older brother came. He hit me in the eye, and it became swollen. Then he punched me in my mouth and broke 6 of my teeth. They were in pieces.
Najia says Yasmin is fortunate that she could reach the shelter. That's not always possible. In areas controlled by the Taliban, are you able to help women who may be suffering from violence?
That we cannot help them because we don't know about the violence there, what's going on there. It looks like everything is okay there. It looks like this because the woman doesn't have any right. Don't have any right to raise their voice. So if you don't hear something, so how can you help someone?
Today, roughly half of Afghanistan is under the Taliban's control. We don't know how they're treating women in these areas because it's too dangerous for us to go. But a confidential source close to the Taliban said he could help us investigate. After days of careful planning, he was able to film this extraordinary footage and smuggle it to us through government checkpoints. It's from a district in Ghazni province, which fell to the Taliban years ago. Here we see fighters carrying AK-47s and RPGs parading through the district. We hear from Taliban judges running their own courts. What we don't see is any footage of a single woman. Their spokesman Mansour Ghaznavi tells us that girls in the area are allowed to go to school.
We do have female madrasas in our district, but they have to wear the hijab. Even in the future, when we're in government, we'll allow them to go to school according to Sharia law.
This might sound like progress until you dig a little deeper.
Sharia law only allows women to wear the full hijab and to always be accompanied by a male relative, because in the Quran it says that women should stay at home And if they have to go out, they should be with a male relative.
Our contact presses him to be more specific, asking, will women have the right to work, study and marry whoever they want?
I can't answer this question.
But we track down a young woman who can answer.
My area is totally controlled by the Taliban. They forced young girls into marriage. They burnt down the school. There was a medical clinic, but they burnt that down too.
At first, Masuda says girls still tried to go to school, but it didn't last long.
One day, the Taliban came to my school and took a girl out and shot her because she liked a boy. She was bleeding all over her body. We all screamed and ran away.
Masuda was forced to marry when she was just 12. She says her husband beat her and her father-in-law demanded sex. She's now in hiding, but insurgents in her area have ordered her to come back.
The Taliban said they'll control all of Afghanistan soon anyway. Then they'll execute me. They're calling me from my mom's phone. She's begging me to come back. She says if you love me, you should come back. If I go back, they'll kill me. If I don't, they'll kill my family.
Throughout the peace talks with the US, the Taliban has insisted that it has changed and that it will uphold women's rights. But these videos taken in areas under their control tell a different story. In this footage, Taliban fighters are shown executing a woman accused of adultery. These women were gunned down in the dead of night on a dirt road because the Taliban thought they were prostitutes. And this video from earlier this year shows a woman being publicly lashed for singing and dancing.
Even if they have changed, truly, even if you believe them for what they say, it's very unlikely that they actually impose what they say on their foot soldiers in Afghanistan.
Politician Fawzia Kufi is one of the few Afghan women to meet the Taliban face to face during the peace negotiations held in Russia and Qatar.
Speaking in Moscow in a five-star hotel is much more easier than actually practicing it in Afghanistan in the rural villages through your foot soldiers who are not educated. What they have heard through their years of fighting is hate towards women, hate towards society, killing, murder. How do you change those perspectives?
But Fawzia saves her harshest criticism for the US, which she says has failed to follow through on a war that it began.
You know, the West came to Afghanistan not just because they wanted to save us. They came to Afghanistan after the 9/11 attack happened to New York. So they actually came to Afghanistan partly to save their own soils from terroristic attacks. Now, because the Americans want to leave, we just ignore the woman.
It's a question only the US government can answer, and they did not agree to speak to us. What is clear is that after the death of tens of thousands of people, many view a peace deal with the Taliban as a stunning betrayal.
All those American and NATO soldiers who've been killed, they weren't fighting me. I didn't kill them.